American tax dollars are going to be used to buy American products made in America to create American jobs. That's the way it's supposed to be, and it will be in this administration.
All right, that right there, President Biden pushing his American jobs plan, calling for Americans' tax dollars to invest in American-made goods and products. This is the president also introduces his new plan called the American Families Plan. Joining us to talk about all of this, former chief economist under President Trump, Joe Livornia, and business and market analyst Seth Denson. Thank you both for joining us this morning. Seth, I'll start with you. President Biden spoke about his new $1.8 trillion American Families Plan, which adds to more than $4 trillion in just the first 100 days in office. Your thoughts?
Well, listen, I think that President Biden is fulfilling his campaign promises and the things that he ran on, which are things like modern monetary theory, right? Which means that, hey, you can just kind of spend yourself into oblivion. It's just money. That the government knows better than you what to do with your money, and that feelings are more important than facts. We need to look back to just a few years ago, the Trump administration pre-pandemic. We saw the lowest poverty rate, the lowest unemployment rate, the highest level of growth. Facts matter, numbers matter, and unfortunately, feelings took precedence last night.
All right, Joe, we're seeing car prices up nearly 10%, meat products up 6% from just last year. Do you think this is just the start?
No, I don't. The inflation has been very intense and very concentrated, Rachel, in certain areas of the economy. Food and energy certainly are two areas, and used car prices as well, and that's partly because of this chip issue with supply chains, whereby companies can't build because they're missing the technology that goes into cars, so the used market is accelerating sharply. If you look at rents across much of the country, they've come down, and service prices in general are not going up. Having said that, the tax plan that the administration has put forward is not a growth plan at all. It will hurt capital formation, which means it'll hurt productivity growth, and it means it'll hurt worker wages. So wage growth, which is already moderating, will remain soft long-term if these policies were to persist for any length of time. So I don't see an inflation problem as much as I see a middle-class worker wage problem, a stagnation, if all these tax and regulatory policies were to come to fruition.
And Seth, economists are predicting a high burst of hiring and job growth as restrictions of the pandemic are starting to ease. But we're still seeing business owners having trouble bringing back employees who are making more at home rather than working. So how will this economic plan affect the American people in the country, let's say 5 to 10 years from now?
Well, there's a lot of academic work that's been done.
I'm going to send that one to Seth. Joe, I'll come back to you in just a second.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
That's all right. Listen, this is going to create a lot of jobs overseas. And that's what's going to happen here at the end of the day. Listen, money is mobile. And what's going to happen is these corporations are going to invest. They're going to invest in production overseas. They're going to move operations overseas. We didn't even look all that far back to remember when that was a reality. And that's certainly something that we're going to see here over the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to impact Americans. Joseph mentioned it. We're going to see wage compression, right? When you raise the minimum wage to $15, that makes the dollars in that middle class less viable. It's going to compress wages and slow growth.
Joe, I'll go back to you now. Do you think this family plan will make some lower class Americans not want to go back to work?
There's an issue. There's been a lot of academic research, Rachel, that suggests that if you make unemployment benefits very beneficial and extend them for long periods of time, you wind up keeping people out of the workforce. And the longer you keep workers out of the workforce, if they can come back, you have a situation where their skills atrophy. We know there's a lot of job openings. The Bureau of Labor Statistics data show that. So there's a lot of job openings, but there's still a lot of people who are unemployed. Yes, the economy is coming back. It started to boom under President Trump last year, but we still have over 8 million jobs below our pre-pandemic peak. So there's a lot more work to be done. And I would argue growth that gives the revenues should be bipartisan because it could help the people who need the money. But we need strong, durable growth, not a sugar high-led government spending initiative, which won't really do anything in my mind to longer-term capital formation and underlying wage trends.
Let's take a quick listen to President Biden speaking on how he will pay for the new American Families Plan.
I made it clear we can do it without increasing the deficits. Let's start with what I will not do. I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. But it's time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% of Americans to just begin to pay their fair share.
Seth, something else I noticed after President Biden was talking about these different plans, he said, we can afford it. And I think if a lot of people were listening, they were wondering, can we? Can we actually afford it? So like you touched on just a moment ago, does this push more businesses to pack up their bags and head overseas?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And you know, the president claiming that this isn't going to increase dollars into the deficit, I don't know what lens he's looking at because the economic growth and trajectory will shift dramatically based on a number of tax policies that he's proposed, but specifically around capital gains. And that one is so important. There's a reason capital gains are where they are, and it's so that you invest. Listen, if I'm investing, I'm already taking a gamble, right? That investment may not pay off. But now you're telling me if I invest and it does pay off, I still may have to give half of that to Uncle Sam. I'm going to pull my money away from the table. I'm going to go somewhere else with it.
How big of a gamble is that, Seth?
Oh, it's a significant gamble, at least, you know, economically. Now, for Joe Biden, I don't know if this is much of a gamble politically because he'll probably stick enough pork in this thing that he's going to still do okay from a political perspective. Free money is always popular. But here's the reality. This is a gamble for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And sadly, the odds are in the favor of the casino and the banks on this one.
Whoever dog that is, tell him I said hi. Joe, let me ask you, part of this plan is a free community college. We talk a lot about a solution for getting rid of student debt. Do you think this is the right move as far as student debt in college goes?
There's no such thing, Rachel, as free. Economics is about the study of scarcity. So if you tax companies more, what will happen is you will depress wages. That's why the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017 was so effective. It lifted corporate profits, and those profits then flow through to workers, which you saw a record increase in living standards in 2019, which is what Seth alluded to. So if you have it free, it's not really free. It might be free to someone, at least in principle, but in reality, somebody's got to pay for it. And regarding the deficit, we passed a $1.9 trillion stimulus plan. We're trying to pass upwards of another $3 trillion this year. We could be looking at a budget deficit to GDP ratio that's up at 19%. That's bigger than what we ran during World War II when we were in a global war. This is unheard of in peacetime.
Marketing 101. Use the word free and put it in all caps, right? All right, Seth Denson,
exactly
Joe
right.
Livornia, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Rachel.
All right, we have plenty left coming up.